statements of what he's been saying about that. Look, we all know we need more players. Now, look, publicly, United are saying that they want more. They want another centre-back. Sorry, they want another centre midfielder, left-back, and apparently a striker. Now, Fabrizio Romano has been talking about that, and we all know that Fabrizio at times is a mouthpiece, and we'll go through all that good stuff. So look, with the transfer window entering the end game, with less than 3 weeks till the end of the window, just over a week until the Premier League starts. Well, actually, it's a week today the Premier League starts. So the question really is, do United know who they want, and are they going to put up or shut up? Look, we'll go through the names. Look, Lewis-Skelly, but there is an update on Lewis-Skelly today. Koné, Lewis Page, Sander Berge, Salinas, Lewis Hall has been mentioned again, and a striker. I don't even know where to begin on a striker. So look, Jacobs has been talking as well. I want Ben Jacobs, I want to talk about what he said. I think he's an absolute clown. You need to adjust the camera, and we will talk about what Jacobs has said. It gets worse and worse and worse. So look, good morning. Welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. Look, the transfer window is going to get very, very exciting in the next 2 and a bit weeks. Will Ineos and the Glazers, and there's a couple of points that I do need to talk about on Jason Wilcox's opinion as to how he picks picks players, and it's nothing to do with the data. It's all to do with the eye test. And chat, I promise you, I will get into the chat in a bit. Now look, Carrick's comments, they really matter. Michael Carrick, and I'll give you the quotes. Look, Michael Carrick, even Carrick, who is, in my opinion, is a bit of a company man, even he's demanding players now as well. So look, I don't think the squad is complete yet. But look, what does United look like? Is this just a brief? Is this just a spin to get us through to the end of the winter? So look, Michael Carrick's comments. Look, he says we want more, we need more, and I will go through those comments in a little bit of depth as well. Look, he is behaving. Look, I've got to say this: whether or not I wanted Michael Carrick in this role. Look, I've got to back a manager, and I like what I'm seeing. Look, Michael Carrick, whether he works out or not, I like the fact that he is starting. I've seen things that are out there saying that he is demanding things from the board. He's not demanding from the board at all. He doesn't go to the board and say, give me players. What he's doing is he is asking for more players. So look, let's see if Michael Carrick is complicit in the spin, or whether or not he actually wants more players. And look, we've all been told we're going to be looking for opportunities in this market as well. So there are 3 positions. I want to go through these. I'll give you my opinions as to who they are. And look, United just could go for somebody cheap. Look, apparently left back, potentially striker, centre midfield. Look, these are basically what Romano has said. Look, Manu Koné, this is the one that I would really, really watch. We've spoke about him a lot on this channel. The deal is there to do. It's whether United are going to pull the trigger. Yes, I've seen Osimhen as well. So look, I think Manu Koné, look, I think the club see him as the right age, the right profile of player, athleticism, but sadly, injury record. And I think when you go from Roma in Serie A to the Premier League, I think there's a big difference to that as well. Sander Berge, look, we'll talk a little bit about Sander Berge. Again, a really, really cheap option. Cheap like a bird. Left back targets. Look, Lewis-Skelly, apparently United are not going to go anywhere near a Lewis-Skelly. So again, we will talk. We'll talk about that as well. And a striker bombshell. I don't even know. I can't even tell you a striker. I don't even know about a striker. But the striker is a position that apparently that will do if we've got time at the back end of the window. It's less than 3 weeks, lads. It's less than 3 weeks. So look, I think another striker is right. I think it gives us depth. Now, Jacobs. Oh Ben. Look, look. I know people like Ben Jacobs, but come on. I mean, his take on Christopher Nkunku is absolutely ridiculous. And this is a guy, by the way, who openly was talking about Cody Gakpo to United in this window. What he does is he mentions these things, and his takes are absolutely crazy. So look, I want to know if you think we're going to sign any players. Does Michael Carrick actually want players? What can we actually do? What can we actually do? We take weeks. We take weeks to negotiate on players, and we apparently want 3. Now, I'm going to tell you my honest opinion, and I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. So look, please get in there with the chat. There's 13 of you. Please give the video a like. It really does help the channel. That's double tap on the screen, or whatever you're doing, give the video a like. I promise you, it pushes it out. Sky, yes. Look, Sky, condolences about your granddad. Look, I hope it goes well today. Look, I know it's not nice, and look, my thoughts are with you today, Sky. So hopefully you have a day where you can talk about it. You can reminisce. Have a good cry. We've all been there, and look, it's that day for that. So look, massive condolences to Sky, and I do hope your day can be as good as it can possibly be. So look, let's talk about first of all what Michael Carrick has been saying. Now, Michael Carrick, as we know, as I've told you on this channel many times, look, I wasn't in for Michael Carrick. Look, from what I saw, yes, Carrick and the stats, look, I can't argue with the stats, but I am going to refer to Jason Wilcox a little bit as well. The eye test doesn't lie. Yes, Michael Carrick got lots and lots of points, which is fantastic. Carrick should be applauded. And look, the eye test wasn't great. And I promise I will get into the chat as well. But what I do like about the fact that Michael Carrick has said that he needs more players, and there's no way around it. There is no, you can't be ambiguous when it comes to what he said, and I agree with Barry Morgan. Look, Michael Carrick has said this: we want more, we need more, and we keep looking for how we can do that. That never stops. Now look, I think you can interpret that in many ways. Now, I've seen people talk about how Michael Carrick has gone to the board and he said, I want players, you give me players. Look, Michael Carrick hasn't done that. Michael Carrick does not have the authority. Michael Carrick does not have the gumption to go to the board and demand players. He is not a manager. Let's be clear on this one. Michael Carrick is part of the furniture, but Michael Carrick is a company man. Now look, people can call me out for that. Michael Carrick is just happy right now to have this job. Look, if you had an opportunity to manage this club, whether you're good, bad, indifferent, most people would manage this club. And if Ineos give you that opportunity, then you'd absolutely take the opportunity to do so. Look, I've got nothing against Michael Carrick. Now, pre-season, people have come back pre-season. Now, this is where my opinion does shift. Now, look, what I like is players have come back. We did the last pre-season, and last pre-season we were crap. We weren't great. We were absolutely abysmal. That's because people didn't want to come back. Look, Amarin, the problem is when you've got a club or when you've got a manager that wants to make the decisions that are difficult, players don't want to come back. Look, Amarin created the bomb squad, and look, players get spun around. Players are scared. I don't think players wanted to come back. Mbeumo looked fine last season, but again, he came in. But these players want to come back. These players look like they want to come back. Now, I'm not saying that, we're still going to have this amazing season. But look, the very first foundation that you need is players who want to come back. Mbeumo looks fantastic. So look, I'm really happy. Now look, this is the second part to this. Michael Carrick is now asking for players, and I'll give you the both sides of it. I'll give you the positivity, and I'll give you, look, there is a different side to this as well. So look, again, Carrick has said there are two parts to this. He said we want more, we need more, and we keep looking for how we can do that. That never stops. I like that. I like the fact that Michael Carrick wants more. And look, guys, please give the video a like. I promise you, it helps the video out so much. Look, I like the fact that you can't be ambiguous with this. He has said we want more, we need more, we are looking to do that. That never stops. He then says, I think we've got a pretty good balance in all when you lay the squad out, but we would like more. We need to keep pushing for more. I like that. But I'm going to give you the flip side to that as well. It sounds to me like Michael Carrick has been briefed. It does sound to me that this is an Ineos-led, what Michael Carrick is saying. And I'll tell you for why. Is because Michael Carrick is a very good statesman. He's a very good, he talks very well in terms of the club. He's media trained. I do think that this is a media aimed at saying, look, we're trying to do more. We've heard this a couple of times, by the way. So look, again, I think people can take it in whichever way they want to. They can be clapping Michael Carrick. Look, I'm glad he said it. And, I could be completely wrong, but the fact is saying that we want more, we need more, and let's be clear on this. Michael Carrick isn't saying he's not saying I want more. We need, I want more. I want to keep looking. The team needs more. He's saying that we need more. We want more, and we keep looking for how we can do that. I'm sorry, for me, that is a club brief. People are going to go nuts. Oh, Michael Carrick is speaking out against this club. He is demanding more. He's going to the board. Look, I'm sorry to disappoint. I don't believe it, and this is not me negative. This is not me calling him out. Look, what is Michael Carrick supposed to do here? He is the coach. What is he supposed to do? I think that this is a brief. I think this is a controlled statement from the Glazers. Look, the fact that he's saying that we want more, we need more, we keep looking how we can do it. Look, go and do it. This is a Wilcox club-based statement. Look, if you want more, if you need more, and you're looking for more, how many more players do you need to look for? How you've had 6 months, people. You've had 6 months. You've had 6 months to basically go and find these players. What have you been doing for 6 months? You know the market. You've known the market for the last 6 months. And yet you keep looking for players. What are you looking for? What are you looking for? What are you looking for these players? This is the part of the statement. And look, what we do on this channel, or what I do, is I don't just take it at the value. I will look at it and I will give you the both sides. And in my view, this is a statement channeled through a Michael Carrick. I'm not blaming Michael Carrick. This is not about what I think he's going to do in the season. But this is another type of spin, if you like, to get the fan base on board. Carrick, he's talking about the club again. He's this time he's saying that he wants more. He's up for a fight. I'm sorry. So look, give me your opinions in on that, and I promise you I will get into the chat in a second as well. Now look. Where do I think we're going to land with these? And we'll talk about what Fabrizio Romano has said. Look, for me, this is a very David Ornstein, a very, very David Ornstein type of speech. If you remember back to last season, I covered it on this channel. David Ornstein at the end of the window was talking, pontificating as he always does, and basically what he said, David Ornstein, was whatever United don't do in this window, they will look to get a midfield in the January window. Total crap. Total crap. So what we are going to see is, I think we're not going to get 3. Spoiler alert. I think we'll get 2. And I think it will be along the lines of, look, we wanted more. You know, instead of we want more, we need more, we keep looking for more. We're going to have past tense. We're going to have, we wanted more. We needed more. And we kept looking, but we couldn't find players. So, look, that is where I am on those statements. I am going to get into the chat, and then we will talk about Gabriel. Apparently, Chelsea are looking at him. Christopher Nkunku, which I think is ridiculous. And look, Fabrizio Romano. What has Fabrizio Romano been saying here, other than taking damage to the reputation that he's got? Let's see what's happening. So look, guys, please give the video a like. I promise you, getting those likes up and watching the content really does push the video. It really makes a difference to the channel. Do you know what? You don't even have to subscribe. Right, I'd love you to subscribe, be a member, but the likes really help the channel. So let's get into the chat. Let's see what you guys are saying on this chat. Look, I'm hyped up this morning because look, we need to push through this as well. So Bobby is in the house, Mark is in the house, says hello. Natasha is in the house. Hi, they are on about Lewis Hall again. I know they are. Look, Lewis Hall is going to be mentioned so many times because look, we know what this club does and what it's all about. What is the latest story? I've missed the few shows. Look, James, look, where we are is, look, I think we're trying to get to the end of the window, and basically I believe I'm going to go against what I think Romano is saying. I'm going to go against what Michael Carrick is saying. I think we're trying to limp over the window. Look, Lewis Hall is going to be briefed again and again and again. I wouldn't be surprised if Chu Amani isn't going to be mentioned again. You know, thank God Anderson, Tonali, Fernandez has all gone. And there are a couple of things that people are not thinking about as well, which I'll go through that as well. Scott's in the house. Yes, I'm very good. Natasha, you know, I'd have gone from data to the eye test. Yes, look, I do want to talk about that as well. So look, let's quickly talk about that. So Wilcox. So what has been stated is that Favel wants the director of football job. Now he is very much data led. Now what's been put out there, which I can't believe has been put out there, is that Wilcox doesn't want to use the data and basically uses the eye test. I mean, Wilcox, I wouldn't trust his eyes. You know, I wouldn't trust it. If I could literally see a car heading towards me and Wilcox said, I can see a car, I'd rather just get hit by a car, because I don't believe a word that he says. And it also goes against what this club apparently has been trying to do. Apparently we are data led, but Wilcox uses the eye test. I mean, again, this is such spin in this club. What are we doing? We're using the data, but we're using the eye test as well. I don't disagree with that statement, by the way. I don't disagree that you need the two things. You do need the data, but you also need to look at the player to see how he plays. The data can't tell you about the attitude of the player. They can't tell you how he moves around the pitch. You know, for example, and I'm just going to use Fernandez as an example. The data can tell you that Bruno Fernandes, you know, on the pitch is one of the best players on the pitch. You know, you can see his assist record. But what the data can't tell you is, look, he does have tantrums. You know, they can't tell you. You know, his attitude is right. You know, he plays every single game, and I'm not disputing the attitude of the play, but it can't tell you that. Sancho, when we bought a Sancho, look, all of his metrics, the data was brilliant. It was perfect, but the data can't tell you that Man City, he had issues at Man City. He had issues at Dortmund. The eye test can kind of not tell you that, but you can see it. So I don't mind the data-driven approach, and also I don't mind the eye test. But then the club can't just be led and put this rhetoric and the nonsense out there that it is all purely down to the data, because it's not. Because Wilcox, I don't think he understands data. I don't think that he can do math. I don't think that he can do 1 + 1. I don't. So look, I've got no faith in that, and it does scare me as well. Sky says, JB, if we don't get any more signings, Carrick, he will be gone by Christmas. I don't think he will. I don't think he will, because I think he is Ineos's guy. You know, Amorim was Ineos's guy. Wilcox quite clearly didn't like the fact that he couldn't control. He couldn't control him. I think as long as United are still in and around 10th, I don't think he gets sacked at all. I think he gets given time, because the beauty of Michael Carrick is he's not going to rock the boat. He's not going to rock the boat. Look, that statement that we just saw is Michael Carrick doing the bidding, I'm sorry, of the club. And he's not going to rock the boat. So and he managed this team as Budget FC. So I don't think he will, buddy. Look, I think any other coach would probably be going. Look, unless we're 18th. I think he gets given at least the whole year. Osimhen to Arsenal. I've heard that. Sky is in the house as well. We get Poundland players, and other teams get top shelf booze. I like that, Scott. Guys, please give the video a like as well. I'm going to keep asking. It does push the content out, so please do give the video a like. Don't be stingy, or I will be sending Wilcox around to your house. And you're going to have to deal with him. That's not my problem. That is going to be your problem. So look, let's talk about it quickly. Let's use Man City as an example, shall we? So, Man City. Buadi, he's not signed yet, but he could do Enzo, Fernandez, and Anderson. Now, I'm not saying we've got to do all of those things. But whether you are the staunchest, we've done good business in Tielemans, etc., you cannot tell me that Tielemans is better than signing Buadi, Enzo Fernandez, and Anderson. I'm not saying that we need to do all of those deals. Look, they could flop. Okay, I'm not saying that is the best thing to do, but even the staunchest, let's support Ineos, Tielemans deal is fantastic. But at this point, you cannot dispute that Tielemans does not compete with that. Yes, you can say 35 million quid is a bargain, but are you going to tell me that Buadi, Enzo Fernandez, and Anderson, Tielemans is better than all of those players? They've just gone and bought a midfield that can dominate. Rodri's going to go to a Barcelona, and what is their response? Look, Enzo Fernandez, whether you like him or not, I think Enzo Fernandez is a good move. Look, I think that Anderson is a fantastic move. Buadi is a bit of a gamble, but they've gone and done their business. So you are right. And then when you look through the Premier League at some of the signings that have been done, and again here, I'm not necessarily saying that we should be doing it. We can't do it. So what are we supposed to do? The money isn't really there to do those sorts of signings. But you are right. And when we're talking about winning a Premier League, when a team goes and buys Enzo Fernandez, and look, this is a team, by the way, 115 charges against the team, and they have been allowed to go out and spend £300 million on 3 midfield players. It's crazy. And Natasha says that they are hoping to get Chouameni before the window closes. I'm not even doing that today. What a load of nonsense. Sky says, yeah, hope you're doing well, Sky. When was the last time a manager was open? Amarin was, I think he was. Have you seen the new kit? I have, but I'm never going to buy it. Danny is in the house, absolute legend as well. Done that one. Done that one. Let's see what we're saying here. Barry Morgan says, also just a quick one, JB. Would you consider reviewing some of the sports fitness tech the club use on the sports science side of things on your channel? Yeah, I could try and do that. I can do. I can try to. I'll do an investigation to see if I can find that out. But look, sports science in this world of athletes, in particularly in the Premier League, and look, I don't necessarily blame. Do I blame the fitness department? It's difficult. It's difficult to do that. But look, we have had problems. Let's see this season. Let's see. Look, there is no sports science. Let me tell you something. There is no sports science in the history of the world that's going to fix a Mason Mount. Mason Mount defies science. We thought that about Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw has defied science. There is no historic evidence that he has dumbfounded science. Luke Shaw should be studied. I am going to say he does walk around a lot, so maybe he is, maybe he's not sprinting as much anymore. But yeah, look, he's going against science, just like Mason Mount. Look, the guy's made of glass. I mean, I'd even say he's not even made of glass. What's weaker than glass? What, air? He's literally made of like hollow glass. He's literally made like he's as brittle as not even glass. So yeah, sports science is important. Pedro is in the house. They're looking for a cheap price tag. I don't disagree with you. I'll give you my view as to where I think that will go. Look, the Koné stuff is there. The Koné thing is there to do. So let's see on that one as well. Need to take a breath. Like a video, or JB will put his ring finger. Exactly. And guys, yeah, please give the video a like. Look, there's 20 of it. Let's get to 20 likes. I promise you. If you want the channel to get bigger and you want the channel to start competing, look, giving the video likes, interactions, that is what pushes it. Look, that is what tells the algorithm, look, push this video out. Yes, Leewood says, having Wilcox having the eye test, might as well use Stevie Wonder's glasses while Wilcox is a fool. Yes, I do agree with you. What's the saying is bargain basement. Rangers got put out of Europe League by the Polish Farmers. But to win a title, you have to sign the best players. Yes, exactly. JB, every top 4 or 5 club has 100 million centre midfield player, and we get bargain basements. And this is what I'm saying. Look, I will give the both sides. I think on this channel, I think it's very, very important that you give both sides of the argument. So look, I'll give time. I'm not against if you believe Ineos, the data approach. If you think that Tielemans is an amazing signing, Santos is. But I think that argument is becoming redundant. I'm sorry. I think that argument now of not signing players. We've got this amazing midfield. A bargain. We've spent 85 million. Man City then spent 100 on a single player. Spurs. Have they been done over? But I'm sorry to say this. That argument right now, and those people are being quiet. Those people are not saying a word. Could Tielemans? I've already seen that is Tielemans the signing of the season. He could be. He could well be. I'm not disputing Tielemans could be a fantastic signing. But look at what Man City are doing. You've got to. If we want to win a Premier League, you've got to look at what Man City are doing. If you want to win a Premier League, I don't like it. I can't stand it. It bothers me. It pains me to see what Man City are doing. But those who are now trying to say that this window has been fantastic. Santos, I like Santos. I think he's a good signing. Look, I'm not against the Tielemans signing. I'm not against the Santos signing. I really, really like Santos. He has my expectations at the moment have increased. I think he is a good player. But let's not pretend he's not Enzo Fernandez. He is not Anderson. And they've just gone, I'm probably going to get two of those players as well. So, look, I don't disagree with Scott there. Bacola to Liverpool, yes, new analogy. United go and get a streetwalker and every other club go and gets a high club. I'm not going to say the end part of that, my friend. Mason Mount has a monthly sick note attached to his payslip. I wonder if Mason Mount has to go get a statement of fitness to work. I bet he does. I bet every single week he's got to go to the GP and say, look, I can't work. I bet he's on speed dial. Name the two players that you think will get. Look, I think the two players that I think that will get, I think we'll go for Lewis Page. I think Lewis Page or Koné. I still think Koné is probably the most likely of players that we've done the most work on the Koné deal. I think that we will probably do the Koné deal. That is what I do think. Also, Lewis Page. So I think is going to be one of. Look, let's go through the targets. These are the targets that we know. So Lewis-Skelly, we've ruled that out. So that one that has been ruled out. Koné, we're still in there. Look, we've spoken to Roma. It's whether or not we are back in, and it's whether or not we can do a deal with add-ons. Lewis Page, look, Lewis Page, a League One player, he's played 20 odd times for a Leicester. He's young, 10 to 20 million. I think that's. Look, again, I don't prescribe to fees and the wages, but look, let's talk about the fee. 20 million. I'm sorry, Sander Berge, Kamara, and again, Chouameni, Camavinga. Those players are still floating around there. So look, Lewis-Skelly, I think, is off of the table. Belabor as well. Let's not forget Belabor here. I think Belabor goes to a Newcastle. There's talk of Koné. Look, so we are talking to Koné, but there are also other clubs who are interested in him. So Newcastle need two midfielders. Koné, whilst we are dithering, and are we dithering on purpose on the Koné deal? What are we doing, right? Newcastle are there. Saudi are there. So I think Belabor goes to a Newcastle. Kamara, I think, forget that one. Buddy would be seen as a cheaper deal. Lewis Page, I can't move away from Lewis Page. I think we are looking at a Lewis Page that's been mentioned. Have we been briefed on that already? Lewis-Skelly, I think, is off the table. And Koné, I think Koné as well. Look, there is left backs. So left backs, Salinas, Lewis Hall's been mentioned as well. Truffett, I think he would be a decent player as well. Look, Lewis Hall, for me, if we go for Lewis Hall, we're going to have to pay 70 million. So that's why I think that one is done. And apparently, I want to talk about Amas for a second. Apparently, Amas, West Ham, like Harry. I wouldn't sell him. But look, outside of those being kind of mentioned, I think we'll go for a cheap left back. I think Salinas, fits all of that. He's going to be 20 million, 19 years old. He's already played 30 odd games. La Liga, he's back in there now. So I think we're going to do that sort of Malacia cheaper left back signing. Centre midfielder, I think that, look, we could do a Koné. I don't think we're going to go much above 50 million. Hopefully I'm wrong. I don't think I am. Or a Lewis Page. A striker, you tell me in the chat, what do you think about striker? because I've got no idea about a striker. Would we go for Jamie Vardy? I don't know. Would we go for a Mateta? I don't mind that sort of player. Outside of that, Vlahovic has gone to Turkey. I'm glad that he's out. So, in terms of a striker, I don't see us going for a striker. I don't see us. I don't see that. I think that is one of those positions that I don't think we are. I think that's been briefed to the media. I don't think we get a striker. Where is the top tier signing, says Natasha. Spicy is in the house, absolute legend as he always is. Santos, Tielemans are both good to add to the midfield, but we need more in the midfield and defence really badly, urgently for that matter. I do agree with you. Berkshire says Ineos and the Glazers out. Yes, I do agree with you on that one. Man City want to win titles. That's why they sign top tier players. We get top 3, says Spicy. Look, let me tell you this. There are people on this channel, right, that are really different to me. And Spicy is one of those players and people. And what I like about Spicy is he's very, very positive. Look, I really like that as well. Look, Scott as well is very, very positive in terms of, our league position. And I really, really like that. Spicy, I disagree with you. I don't think we get top 3 again. If we had one game a week, I would say I would probably be leaning towards 3rd, 4th if we didn't have Champions League. I don't see with this squad how we get top 3 and play the Champions League. I can't see past that. Look. We could do. I don't think our squad's big enough. Look, what happens if Santos is out? Tielemans is not a defensive midfielder. Look, Michael Carrick likes to play with a back 4 shield, and the reason he plays with a back 4 shield is because he knows his centre backs are either unfit, Harry Maguire is a bit older now, or they're very, very young. So he needs that defensive shield. Tielemans can't be that defensive shield. Fletcher can't be that defensive shield. Who else is there? So look, those are my reasonings behind top 3. But again, I don't mind being proved wrong. Scott says I don't see why we didn't get Spence. Spurs, or we're never gonna sell him to us for 35 million. Look, I agree with you. I like Jed Spence, but I don't think he was going to do that. Scott says you see the gold finger he has. Now with Scott says you see Goldfinger has a show now with Rooney on the overlap. And again, look, I'm going to talk about it. Let's talk about it. I was wondering who was going to be the first person to ask me my opinion on the Goldbridge thing, on the United stand thing. Look, what I'm going to say on this is, look, I don't agree with it. I don't agree. Sorry, I don't like the United stand, and the reason why I don't is because look, I don't agree with the clickbait. I don't agree with it. But look, the Goldbridge stuff. Look, there is no point in me really having an opinion in terms of look. He's now escalated beyond a fan channel. I will have my opinion on the kind of what they are professing to be to what I don't think that they sort of are now. He's gone stratospheric. Look, the fact that, and again, my opinions on him, but look, there is the only thing that I concern is this. Look, massive respect doesn't mean you can not like something, not like a show, but you can still respect what they do and you can still respect the person. Look, he has gone stratospheric. There is no point me even really not talking about it, but look, he is now gone another level. He is beyond the United stand. He is now gone beyond fan content. He is a celebrity. He is now an established, a football commentator, if you like. And whether people like that or not, he's got to deal with Rooney and Disney And look, he is now part of that whole thing. So look, it's only respect from me. That anything else than that from me would be bitterness. But there's no bitterness for me. I'm not even in Alice Talks's realm. I'm not even in, you know, United People TV realm. Like this channel is still very, very small. So look, I can only admire and say, look, you know, if I could even get a quarter of that success, that would be amazing to me. But you know, the fact that now, and this is the part where I think people need to understand on this is, look, they're not a fan channel. Look, they protest to be a fan channel. They are no longer a fan channel. What they are is a media company. The United Stand is now a media driven show. It's no longer a fan channel, and people can protest it. Look, I've got no problem. People enjoy it. People like that content, and look, it is a show. Look, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if the United Stand ended up on Netflix. It wouldn't surprise me if it ended up on a Disney. And good luck to him. You know, look, good. He's a multi. You know, he's got millions of pounds. He now gets to do a show with a Rooney, and you know, his ego is massive. But I think if you were in the same position as him, you know, your ego would probably be huge as well. So look, for me, there's no point even talking about it, because look, he is now gone stratospheric. It's a complete. It's just a different league now. I said we will win the league this season. Scott, I think you're mental. Scott, look, mate, I respect your view and opinion. And guys, please give the video a like as well. It really does help the channel out. The more likes, the better. The algorithm enjoys it as well. So, look, Sky, I do hope you have a you have the best day that you possibly can. Any news from the source on who we are getting, because we are literally 2 weeks away from the window. Look, as I said to you, look, my source, look, it can't be involved in every single deal. Look, Koné, look, I will say Koné, if United are looking to go and do a deal, this is what I think happens. If United go and do a cheaper left back, I think they will go and sign Manu Koné. We are talking to Roma. The reason why we've not pulled the trigger on the deal yet is because we want add-ons. This is what we want. We want to do 45 plus 10. We want to do that sort of deal. It's whether or not Roma are going to be acclimatised to that deal. Could Xerxes go the other way? Potentially. So look, the Manu Koné, I would still say, is probably the most likely deal to do. But there are teams that are in for him. And, you know, there are 2 Saudi teams. Newcastle are there as well. Chelsea like the player as well. And don't forget this, by the way. Chelsea lose Enzo Fernandez. I think Koné is a serious option. So I would say watch the Koné one. Lewis Page, I know they like Lewis Page. I've been told about Page. They do like Page. Again, the data stuff on Page, they really like Page. Baleba is there. There is no point me lying about this. Again, you know, the Baleba saga. If Baleba price comes down, United will be there, and they will try to look to do that deal. Now, the people will keep saying, why is the Baleba deal thing still there? The reason why the Baleba thing is still there, for the fact, even if it's 60 million, the wages are so low. It is the wages. Because the wage is so low, he would be ideal. They would see him as an ideal player. They would see him as, look, he's still young. You know, I don't think he'd mind necessarily being benched. You know, the thing about a Koné is people need to understand is he's a senior player, and you've gone and signed a Santos. Santos has come in for 50 million. How are you going to bring in a Koné? Santos will then have to move to the bench because Koné will play. Koné will be the marquee signing. I think Baleba, they would see him as a high price player, marquee signing, but he's not going to mind being on the bench because look, he's still a young kid. Santos is, and again, I don't think Santos would necessarily mind being on the bench for some games if Koné comes in as well. So I think, you know, look, what sort of makes sense to me really is I don't think you're going to have a Baleba who's young, Santos who's young. I think you bring in a Koné and you have Santos and you put Koné in and then you can move them around. So that is kind of the thing there. Left back, look, Lewis Hall, we're going to get that till the end of the window. I don't think that happens. The Amas, I don't know. So I think Solanus, I do. That name keeps being mentioned to me. So Solanus for me. Greetings, JB, says Simon. Carrick must feel Oliver Twist when asking for more players. Please, sir, can I have some more? How do you think we'll go into the Champions League? I think we'll get out of the league phase. I do. I think we'll get out of that league phase. I think I don't know. Is it the last 16 or whatever it is? I think we'll get out of. That stage. It wouldn't surprise me if we got to a quarter final. I'm not going to go as far as that. I think we get out of the league stage. Sky top 10, but we'll win the UEFA Champions. Do you know what? That would be like us. That would be exactly like us to go and be top 10, but win the Champions League. Forget Mount. He's as useful as a porthole on a sub. What 11 will put out for AC Milan? I think he'll put out the team he's thinking about playing. I'm sorry, I don't want to see Marcus Rashford start. If Marcus Rashford starts, look, he may start because the other players need a bit of a rest. Marcus Rashford starting for me is scary. It's very, very scary. Will Marcus Rashford go straight into the side? Look, what do I think we'll see? I don't know if Šeško's back. I don't think Šeško will start, but I want to see him back. I think he goes in Bumo. I think he'll go Ahmad again. I think he'll go Rashford starting, and then the midfield. I think he'll go Kobe Mainoo can't play, can he? Bruno Fernandes. Look, Kobe Mainoo does have to play really, but I don't think he will. I think he'll go Fernandes. I think he'll go Tielemans to start. I think he'll go Santos again, and then the back four. I hope he starts with Amas. I really, really do. And then I think if Maguire is fit, he might go in for Maguire. Maybe Maguire, Ayoro, Mazraoui. So I think he's going to start. I think he's going to start that. The clickbaiting ass from the United stand does my head in. I think Maguire will start as he missed out on Leeds, and the same with Lacey. Yes. Simon says, I hope all is well, JB. Yes, I am. I'm doing extremely well, my friend. If we get Baleba, Watkins, Lewis Hall, we would definitely 80% chance of winning titles. Look, Martin, if we get Watkins, if we get Lewis Hall, do I think we challenge for a title? I don't think we do it this season, but I think then if we continually to build on that, and I think we're 2 seasons away. I think we're 2 seasons away from potentially winning the league. Breaking news: ex-United keeper Jimmy Rimmer sadly passed away at 78. For those who remember him, look, condolences. Look, any ex-player that passes away. Let me have a little look as well. Let's do that as well. Yeah, look, European Cup winner as well, by the way. And Aston Villa and United keeper. So look, massive condolences as well. Any ex-United player needs to be mentioned. And look, yeah, 78. 78 is one of those kind of like ages whereby it's not young, it's not old, really. So look, massive condolences to him, and it is a shame when any ex-player dies as well. Ray says, to be fair, Gobridge says it like how it is. Look, I'm not going to comment on what he does, the things that he says. Look, that's on him. The only thing I've got to say on it really is, look, he's done extremely well. Look, I think he's moved beyond it. There is no point. It is literally a bit like, I am a 1990s Mini Cooper, and Goldbridge is like a Ferrari. Not in terms of the people, but just in terms of the channels. Like there is no point in me even entering into a debate about it. Like there is just 0 point. Tamori is on the market, so is Kane. I don't want Tamori. Not for me. I do not want Tamori. I don't want him. Look, Chelsea sold him. Any players, no disrespects to Serie A, any players that Serie A don't want, I don't want them. I'm sorry, I don't. So Nkunku, let's talk about Christopher Nkunku. So Ben Jacobs was talking about this, and one of the things that he said was he could basically, he's mentioned that Nkunku, AC Milan want to listen to options for him. No, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. Look, this is a guy who said that I can see or mention. I think he even just mentioned Cody Gakpo to United in this window, and now he's talking about Nkunku. I mean, I just despair. I really do despair. Like, we're not going to go for Nkunku. I know that we are incompetent, but we're not going to go for this player. He's injury prone beyond belief. I don't want him. Look, we're not. I don't think we're so stupid, and that's the same as Tamori. Look, I don't want Tamori. There are so many players that are linked to us, and the fact that you've got a tier whatever he is, tier fucking Z at this point, he goes on the United stand, and they give him a platform to spout this utter shit. So look, and that's basically is to go back to what Ray says. I don't want Tamori. I wouldn't even debate on it. He's not for me. Harry Kane, look, I'd love Harry Kane. If we were an ambitious club, we'd go for Kane. We're not going to go for Kane. We're not going to pay his 350, 400k wages. Martin says, hi, of course you are. Belabor that word again. I don't want to see Rashford at also. Simon Carrick may have half of the players he had in the Leeds game, but other teams will continue to build top tier players. At least the trophy we won was a large one this time. Just goes to prove that Bruno is human, missing penalties. It was an awful penalty. Awful penalty. JB is United had 120 to 140, and they asked you to get 1 CM. Who are you choosing? Well, on the basis that most of the midfielders have gone. Look, if I had 120 to 140 on the CM, who am I getting? There's a simple answer: Chu and Maney. Look, I don't want to talk about him. I don't talk about him. I don't agree with it. But Chu and Maney, he would be the signing for me. I know Valverde would be what Scott would choose, but I would go for Chu and Maney. I think of all the CMs available, I think for what we need, you can't look really beyond a Valverde. I don't think you can look beyond a Chu and Maney. Other than that, I can't really think of anybody else. I don't want Enzo Fernandez. I mean, I don't want another Argentinian. I don't like Enzo Fernandez. Yes, people can argue that he'd bring bite into the midfield. I don't like him, so no, thank you. For me, I think that is what I'd probably look to go to. They think Bruno will stay forever. Will Bruno Fernandes stay forever? I don't know. I really don't know. I think he will. Look, I think he loves the club. Look, gonna say this. Roy Keane didn't stay forever. Scholes did, obviously. Look, Roy Keane didn't stay forever. Paul Ince didn't stay forever. Let's go to current. De Bruyne, probably Stevie G. Stevie G did retire. Lampard, Frank Lampard is a Chelsea icon. He went to New York, and then he came back and played for Man City. So, I think any big club, will eventually put these players out to pasture, and I think Bruno Fernandes will want to play back in Portugal at some point. So I don't think he stays forever. I think he stays until he's about 80, and then he goes. If they give me 120 to 140, it would be Gavi or Valverde, says Scott. So look, I wanted to talk about the last thing I wanted to talk about. So Romano, look, Fabrizio Romano. So Gabriel. So JJ. So something interesting has come out today on Gabriel. And what it is look, he is 16 in October. He's currently 15. And look, he can't sign official professional papers until he's 17 years old. So there is talk that Chelsea are sniffing around. You're talking about fabrication Romano. Yeah, now look, Romano didn't say this, by the way. But this is coming out there. So look, Chelsea are sniffing around him. There are teams that are going to be sniffing around this player. And there's not a lot that we can do. There is not a lot that we can really do. The only thing that we can do is play him. Gabriel, for me, is he ready for the first team? I'd argue that, you could give him some game time. But the sad thing about this is that if Chelsea come in and offer him terms and offer him a massive contract, there is talk of Madrid like him, Barcelona like him, PSG. So look, the Gabriel stuff he's very, very sought after. And if we are an ambitious club, look, the thing to me that would scare me and tell me exactly where we are is Gabriel. If he leaves and he gets bought up by a Chelsea, I think that tells you everything that you need to know. I agree with you. Look, we just keep the Archangel away from Spurs. I love it. I would bring Gabriel in. I would look. I'm not the biggest fan of bringing in youth players for the sake of it. I would bring him in. And I would play him in the cup games. Let's just say, you're playing Ipswich. Sorry, let's just say you're playing a Coventry. No disrespects to Coventry, by the way. Look, fantastic. If you're beating them, let's just say you're beating Coventry 3 or 4-0, and you've got 10 minutes to go, bring them on. If you're playing in a cup game against, let's just say we're playing against a Grimsby, bring him on, play him in that game. any of those types of games, just get him in to those squads. And I think if that's the only way that you keep him, I think you have to do that. Sometimes I think he'll go to a championship club. I don't think he will, Simon. Look, I would agree with you. I think that I would send him to a championship club to get more experience. Amas, if you look at him, I think has been invaluable for him. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's rated so highly that I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I really don't think you can. I think he's seen as such a talent. I don't think you can do that. I think if you were to do that, I think he'd leave. And United, I think they rate him so highly that whilst I agree with you, I just don't think he will do. So I think they'll bring him into the squad. I think that they'll play him in cup games. You know, he may get. I think he can play in the Premier League next season. I think they'll bring him in. I do. And let's get to the Champions League final and win it. Play him, and will be the youngest winner of all time. Scott, I mean, I love the takes. I do, but I don't think we get into a Champions League final, my friend. Hull could be an ideal club, newly to give him some. I agree with you. Look, I don't disagree with you. Look, I would probably say Gabriel, if he could go to one of those sorts of teams, I just don't think we will. I think we're so scared that somebody's going to come in and take the player. So on this one occasion, if he's as talented as everybody says he is, I think you've got to bring him into the squad, and I think you've got to give him that game time. And I'm not talking about he's got to start games. Mike says 2 or 3 signings. I think we do 2 at the most, at the very, very most. I don't think we do a signing, and I'll tell you for why. So we've said left back, centre midfield, and a striker if we've got time at the end of the window. This is what we said at the end of the last season. We said we want to get forward players, a defender, and if we've got time, a centre midfielder. I don't believe we're going to get a striker. I don't. I really, really don't. The only time I will believe that is if Marcus Rashford goes. I still think there's time for him to go. I kind of don't think he will now. So look, if you think about our front 4 or 5, so what you've now got is you've got Shesko, you've now got Cunha, Mbeumo, you've got Ahmad, you've got Dorgu, you've got Thompson, and you've got Marcus Rashford. We're not going to be signing a striker with those. Shesko up top as well. So I think we don't do that. I think we will use those players. I think you could use. I don't think we can, but I think the club will probably look to use Rashford as a striker if we need to. I think they'll look to use Cunha as a striker potentially. Mbeumo can be a striker. Shesko as well. So I think that is what we'll probably do. Someone says, is Xerxes still going, or has that gone flat? So where we are with Xerxes is this. Juventus want Xerxes, Roma want him as well. Now, Roma don't want to pay the price. Roma do not want to pay the price. They don't want to pay 40 million. If you think about the crap that's gone around, Xerxes is worth 40 to 50 million. Whether people agree with that or not, that's fine. But if you look at the market, you look at the age, the wage, it is worth that. Juventus don't want to pay it. So what we've said to Juventus is, look, we will do an obligation to buy, and we're being dictated to. They say, well, we might come back in. We kind of may not, and we're not sure, and that is where we are. So Martin says, have people forgotten about Alessandro Martinez and what he did? Why do I feel like people have just forgotten about this. Lissandro coming back like nothing's happened is ridiculous to get him out of the club. Martin, if you've watched the show in the last couple of weeks, I think I even said it about a week ago. Lissandro Martinez for me needs to go. I've spoken about it many times on this channel. I want Lissandro Martinez gone because of injuries. I said it at the beginning of kind of last season. I really said that, and it's all there. I said I would sell him. Now look, I'm going to try not to make this from a political perspective. I have had my views and opinions on this. I think what Lissandro did, he made it political, right? He made it that way. And if the shoe was on the other foot and you went to, and you played in a club for Argentina and you were English and you went to the World Cup and you did that, you would be hounded out. The fact that no action has been taken against him, the fact that the club has not banned him themselves, the club should at least fine him. The fact that the Premier League has not got involved and banned him for 5 games. Look, you can like Lissandro all you want to. I do not agree with what he's done. I would sell him for the reasons of he's injury prone. The fact that he's walked back into the Premier League along with Enzo Fernandez, along with Senesi as well. I don't know, I can't remember the who was holding the banner up. It needs to be fined. I think he needs to be heavily fined. I think he needs to have a 10 match ban. And again, you know, look, I just don't agree with it. Lissandro made it political, not me. Lissandro made it that way, not the club, not the fans. He did that on his own accord. So I think the fact that he's come back to the Premier League with no sanctions, I think the fact he's come back to the club and the club have swept it under the carpet, look, I don't agree with it at all. I want to see how long Shaw lasts for the new season. It would be a mission impossible for him to last for 2 seasons. I agree with you. Scott says I would terminate his contract. Look, I think he's brought the club into disrepute. Scott, imagine this, right? Imagine if you're at work, right? And your club is you're standing there, and your workplace sees you with a banner, saying "I hate this" or the Falklands. You'd be sacked. I'll give you an example. If you look at was it Britain or America, that guy that was having an affair and took his girlfriend to the Coldplay concert, right? And they did the kiss cam, right? So this is nothing to do with his work. He was caught having an affair and it was put on the kiss cam. Those 2 people got sacked. Now we're talking about 2 people outside of work, like having an affair. Whatever you do behind closed doors, that's up to you. Now look, they got sacked, okay? Lissandro Martinez, what he's done is exponentially worse than that. Now, look, people can say, it's an agenda. It is not an agenda. When somebody off their own back makes a political statement about something that I think is basically disgusting, what they've done, and there is no comeback, what does that do? The precedent that sets is that these players can go and make political statements, do whatever they want to, and if you're okay with that, that's fine. I'm not. So look, I am somewhere between. I would sanction him and I would terminate his contract. I would probably not terminate his contract. I would sanction him, because the reason for that is because look, we cannot tolerate that sort of stuff. And I'd say he's bordering on racist. I would say that. I would say it borders on that, because he clearly dislikes England. For what? For being English. So I think it borders on that. I think it borders on all sorts of stuff. I'm not calling Martinez a racist, by the way, so I just need to put that, in there. I'm not calling him that. I'm saying that action borders on the line of that. Can you imagine if I did that? I suddenly had a placard at the back of there saying I hate Argentina. I'd be cancelled. I'd be completely cancelled. Now look, Scott, and this is what I was saying when it happened. One of the things that I said when it happened was, there are people in this country whose granddad, dad fought in that war. Loads of people passed away on the island, innocent people, they passed away on the both sides. Now, one of the things I said, the reason why it's so awful what they did, there are people in this country that fought and lost people in that war. And then to go to Scott's comment, says, my granddad fought in the Falklands, or so did this guy Jim, who lives over the road from me, medals. And Scott, and that is exactly my point. What you said is exactly what I said as well. Someone says, if you want to air your linen in public, then do it somewhere else, not on a major contest. Back in your own country, for example. Yes, this will always be remembered for time now. Yes, I agree with you. So Charlie is in the house. Interesting news. Amas will stay at the club as left back and not selling him after all it looks like. This also means that we're not looking for a left back. They really don't want to spend. Now, look, welcome to the chat, my friend. I like Harry Amas. I'm glad he's staying. If that is true, I'm happy he's staying. But where I do agree with you, look, we need to kick Luke Shaw out. Where I'm happy that Amas is staying. Amas should be the number 2. What should be happening here is Luke Shaw should be gone. And I agree with the statement. We should be signing Luke Shaw's replacement. Harry Amas at the moment shouldn't be that. Harry Amas should be number 2. Luke Shaw should be gone. And I agree with that statement. If we got Lewis Hall, this would be Luke Shaw's end game. This would be the end of Luke Shaw. So look, and Charlie, I hope that's true. I really do. And look, thank you for bringing that into the show. I love it when you guys bring things into the show as well. So look, if that is true, and Luke Shaw, I agree with you. Look, we don't want to spend. We clearly don't want to spend, do we? It would be different if they won the game and say Kane and Bellingham held up a banner says Argentina knew England won. Exactly that. There will be a shock signing. I think the signing is Toney. I like Ivan Toney. I've mentioned Ivan Toney on the club, and if we sign Toney, I like that. Again, I have mentioned him before. I like the signing. The problem with Toney is the wages. I don't know if he signed another contract, but if Ivan Toney came in, he'd have to come in on a reduced wage. So I don't know, but I like that. I still think, look, I think it's going to be one of Lewis Page, Koné and Baleba, do I say, but I think Baleba is going to go to Newcastle. Amas had a good game against Leeds, got us the Susan Ball trophy, says Simon. I love it. But look, guys, on that note, I am going to go. Fantastic show as always. I'm not going to promise I'm going to be back tonight, but I will do everything I can to be back tonight. I will do a show tonight. I really, really want to do a show tonight. So I will do a Friday night show this evening. So I will come back and do that tonight. And look, guys, thank you for the comments. A really interesting show as well. Look, I love the comments in there as well. Look, we do tend to talk about different stuff on the show as well. So look, guys, thank you for watching. You guys are legends of the channel. I am What did Tony do? Before I go, what about Jokin says? I like him as well, by the way. I do. Tony did betting, wasn't it? I think with Tony, I think it was to do with the betting stuff. I don't think he did anything else. But look, if Tony comes in, he's got to the wage has to go down. So look, as I said, have a good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I'm JB. This is the United Devil, and I will be back this evening. Take care.